shot of us. There it is. Zoom McGregor. Shot of us.
Just bear with us, where everyone's just connecting.
McGregor.
Good afternoon.
Shot of us.
Just bear with us, everyone's just connecting.
Good afternoon.
Shot of us.
Everyone's just connecting. We seem to be having some audio difficulties. We just want to make sure everybody's got their radio and everything off.
I don't have anything on at all, Michelle.
Okay, that's good.
Can you see me?
No, not at the moment.
Yeah, I wonder why. Okay. Not that I'm much to look at. That's okay. Doesn't bother me. Not, I don't know why. If you don't care that you don't see me, that's fine with me.
We'll keep trying to get there, Tom.
Okay, Michelle.
We're
sounds good.
having other difficulties right now. We don't want to post 10 weeks.
Michelle, this is
Yeah.
John. This is John. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
Can you see us now?
I can see you. Yeah.
Okay. We're just waiting for a couple members still.
And is everybody going to identify themselves?
They will be identified.
Great.
Hi, John Playful here.
Hi, Tom. I can't see you. All I can see is a black screen that says Ann Feifel. And I suspect that.
Yeah, I'm on the laptop, but like I said, I'm not much to look at, so it's probably better you're seeing what you're seeing.
We're on YouTube now. We're live on YouTube. We'll just hold off, and we still have 2 members to attend.
Tom, I'm sure you've tried this, but if you click on your name or you click on Ann Feifel at the top of the screen, it'll say share video. Did you do that?
Tried that already, yeah.
And
Try it again.
okay.
Oh,
There you go.
Oh, perfect.
There you go.
Thanks, John. Yeah, we just had to try it again.
Okay.
Perfect.
And I don't
Well-
see Mr. Rossi either. So I can see everybody else.
Microphone.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Tom.
We're just waiting for Joey, Michelle.
Yes. Oh, there you are. Okay, thank you. Yes, we're just waiting for Joe Bricker to sign in.
Michelle, is Anthony going to remain incognito? We're just going to see a black.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
But John, you know what I look like. You see me at the gym.
Yes, I have. Yeah. Michelle, should we be muted or can we remain unmuted?
No, you'll be muted until it's time to speak to your application.
Great, thank you.
and the younger people. They were calling code blue, code red, and code all kinds of.
It was by McIntyre Road to
Right
6
up near the green belt road, Greenville.
I called Peter.
Anthony,
Yes, Michelle?
we're just giving Joe a few minutes to sign in.
I understand, yeah.
I'll wait, we'll,
Quarter after?
if you're, if you're okay, we'll just give it a few more minutes and we'll have to begin.
So they're all right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Michelle.
I think we should get started and hopefully Joe is able to join us shortly.
Right, so, okay, we'll call it to order then.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to welcome our newest member, Mr. Greco. Wayne, nice to see you again. I'd like to introduce the members of the committee, Mr. Art Galat at City Hall, Miss Melinda McGregor, and we're just waiting for, I'm Linda, and we're just waiting for Mr. Joseph Greco to join us.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I've been advised that you have a conflict. You've advised me you have a conflict with item number 2 on the agenda, being an application 82621 from Frank and Melissa Bruni. I had asked Joe Greco to step in as chair when that application is being considered, but since he's not here right now, Mr. Galazzi, would you mind acting chair? Art Galazzi will act as chair for that application.
Thank you,
And
Michelle.
it's item 2 on the agenda. Maybe we could move that matter up right now. Consider that matter right now, and then you won't have to step in and out and in and out.
Okay, so I'll step out now and then,
In just a minute, I just need a motion for approval of minutes at the last hearing. That would be June 23rd.
I'll move.
I'll go ahead. Melinda? Seconding,
Yeah, I'll second.
all in favor? Carried.
Thank you. I'd like to advise the committee or anybody in attendance that application A3021, being tab 7 on your agendas, being an application from 2236288 Ontario Inc., Guy's Auto, has been withdrawn. We will not be deliberating on that application today. It's been withdrawn. So we will now move to item 2 on the agenda. And Mr. Chair, if you'd mute yourself.
Okay,
And we'll consider the request. Application A2621 is an application from Frank and Melissa Bruni. And if you could just unmute Melissa Bruni. Melissa, is it you or Frank that's on board?
It's me,
Okay, thank
Melissa.
you. They're the owners of 105 Point Louise Drive. The subject property is located on the south side of Point Louise Drive and abuts St. Mary's River. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and is zone R1 estate residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by reducing a portion of the front yard setback and a portion of the rear yard setback to facilitate the construction of new 226.29 square meter two-story home. Specifically, sections 9.5.2 of zoning bylaw 2001-50 requires a minimum front yard of 12 meters. The applicant proposes to reduce the minimum front yard to 9.84 meters for the easterly portion of the home and the covered portico. It also requires a minimum rear yard of 15 meters, and the applicant proposes to reduce the minimum rear yard to 9.19 meters for the enclosed rear portico. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail and to neighboring properties and by posting a sign on site. Jeff Avery, a neighboring property owner, emailed his support of the application, advising that it's a pleasure to see a young couple building in our neighborhood on a lot that has sat vacant for so many years. I commend the Brunis for their courage and perseverance in buying and building within the NIMBY infested area that they have chosen. In time, I would hope more progressive and youthful residents will squeeze out the stale and narrow-minded NIMBYs that have plagued the area for far too many years. He wished the Brunis all the best. It's noted that Melissa Bruni is participating in the hearing. Technical review of the application by various departments and agencies. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building and planning staff, engineering services, and the legal department had no comments or objections. Building staff noted that the proposed development will require a building permit in compliance with all applicable authorities and legislation. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that the area is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority. With regard to Ontario Regulation 17606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses, any development will require a permit by the Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority, as noted by Ammon in a pre-consultation with the owner. The covered deck must not be used for habitable purposes at any time, sleeping, cooking, living, or dining, etc. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair, and you have in your packages the tests that need to be met. And Melissa, do you have anything to add to what I've said so far?
No, I think you covered it. It's pretty straightforward.
Are there any questions from board members to Ms. Bruni? If none, how do we say?
I'll move.
Linda moves.
I'll second. Wayne.
Wayne Rico seconds.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rossi, if you can hear me yet, would you please rejoin?
I am back.
Thank you. We'll move now to item 1 on the agenda. It's amended application A2521 from Angel and John Tricroach, and Mr. Tricroach is in attendance participating. The subject property is 255 Point Louise Drive. It is located on the south side of Point Louise Drive and abuts St. Mary's River. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R1 estate residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by permitting a 7.92 meter by 12.19 meter by 6 meter detached garage to be located in the front yard by reducing the front and side yard setbacks. You will note that Mr. Tricroach has removed his request to increase the height of the garage and simply is seeking relief from the yard requirements. Specifically, section 9.1.4, no accessory building shall be located in a required front yard. The applicant is asking for permission to locate the garage in the front yard. The minimum front yard setback requirement is 12 meters. The applicant is seeking your approval to reduce that front yard requirement to 7.62 meters for the detached garage and reduce the other interior side yard from 6 meters to 1.83 meters. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties and by posting a sign on site, and it was on the city website. Jeff Avery, a neighboring property owner, emailed his support of the application. He went on to say that the Tricroaches have built a beautiful home at Point Louise and is certain that the garage they are proposing will complement the home and area that they live within. Many of the homes in that area are new or newly renovated, and it's nice to see progress happening in an area that has needed rejuvenation. The NIMBYism that has existed for years in our area may finally be reaching a welcome end. I, for one, will celebrate the day the last one leaves, and our area can become a vibrant, friendly place to live. He wished the Tricroaches all the best in their garage construction. Beth and John Tadashore of 255 Point Louise Drive, neighbors on the west side of the subject property, submitted the following comment. The two main items, height and side yard setback, directly affect our property, and we feel compelled to comment on this variance application. We would like to begin by saying John and Angel are the very definition of great neighbors. They are always willing to lend a helping hand and are always welcoming when it comes to sharing their property, be it for extra parking when required, or simply transversing their property to get to a neighbor's property. No is not in their vocabulary. We fully support their variance application. The 6-foot side yard setback is no different than what we received when building our garage. The Tricroce's garage will be closest to our property, and we are 100% on board with this. The variance dealing with, and we won't, they have comments to the height, but the height has been removed, so we won't reference them. There are no privacy concerns with the proposed height of the garage for 2 reasons. Well, I'll read it. Our garage has no windows on the side which will abut their garage. Secondly, we have seen the Croce's garage plans, and there are no windows on the garage side closest to our property garage, except for some small horizontal windows to allow light in. From speaking to John and Angel, we understand the need for the additional storage space. They will be full-time neighbors come next spring and downsizing to a home for roughly half the size of their current home. In conclusion, we are the neighbors most affected by this variance application and respectfully request our opinion be heard and considered when deciding the fate of this application. The applicant forwarded the following emails of support that he received. Mark and Candace Bellini of 273 Point Louise Drive are in favor of the proposed development and have no issues whatsoever. Kelly Weeks of 243 Point Louise Drive supports the request. Aaron Costant and Frank Flammy of 261 Point Louise Drive advise that John Tricroce and his family have been very thoughtful and considerate neighbors. They've always been very transparent with their ideas, which allows for open dialogue from both parties. We trust that whatever they build will most definitely suit the charm of the neighborhood and only add to their already beautiful home. George Diabardino of 127 Point Louise Drive had no objection to them proceeding to build their garage. Kevin Belanger of 132 Allagash Drive is in full support of John Tricroce's variance that he applied for his new garage. He is a great neighbor and I see no problems arising. Frank Bruni of 105 Point Louise Drive had no objection. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building Division, Engineering Services, Legal Department, Public Works, Nagola, and Public Health had no comments or objections. Building Division noted that the proposed development will require a building permit in compliance with all applicable authorities and legislation. Furthermore, during our review of this file, it was identified that the single-family dwelling located on this property has an outstanding building permit and has yet to be issued an occupancy permit. The Building Division requires this issue be resolved by the owner of the property. And John, that's for your information, and you can deal with Building Division on that. The committee, it's just for your information. Could you unmute Mr. Tricroce, please? Planning staff advised that the subject property is zoned R1, a state residential zone. This is the most restrictive residential zone, which states that lot regulations should reflect a rural setting and that accessory structures that must adhere to the same yard regulations set out for the main building. Given the large scale of the proposed building, planning staff believes that the proposal does not maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and that a closer adherence to the zoning bylaw is more desirable. 2, in comparable situations with same geographic area, planning staff has in the past supported the committee's practice of balancing relief between setbacks and height in order to mitigate cumulative impact. Therefore, planning staff recommends that variances should be granted for either the lot line setback requirements or the height requirement, but not for both. Additionally, window openings should be prohibited on the west wall of the second story of the proposed structure. On reflection, on Mr. Tricroce's reflection of the comments submitted by the planning office, Mr. Tricroce selected to remove his request for the additional height and continue with his request for the setback. That's in line with planning's comments, and planning's comments are that they would support the additional, the setback reductions as requested. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that the area is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority with regard to Ontario Regulation 17606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses. Any development will require a permit from the Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority. A permit was issued for the construction of a 40 by 26 garage and a 70 by 3 foot gabion. Considerations for the committee: planning staff did not support the request as originally submitted. Planning staff could support the increase to height or reduction to setback, but do not support both. It is noted that the applicants have withdrawn their request to increase the height of the garage, and as a result, planning supports the amended application and the reduction to the front and side yard requirements requested by the applicant. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. Mr. Tricot may have something to add.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, no,
John,
I think I'm good with, I think Michelle outlined everything as submitted, so I think I'm good.
no more comments? Okay. Any questions, concerns from board members with respect to the application?
I will move, Mr. Chair,
Thank you. A seconder?
as amended.
As amended, thank you. A seconder, please.
I will second it.
Thank you. Melinda, all in favor? Carried.
So moving to tab 3 on your agenda.
Okay.
It would be tab 3 and 4. This is a dual application. And before I go on, Mr. Tricot, I don't know if you want to continue in the hearing, but feel free to leave at any time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, and I will, I'll leave at this point. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just give me a minute here. Melissa, and that goes for anybody that's participating. You're welcome to remain with us for the remainder of the hearing, but once your application's finished, you're also welcome to leave if you so choose.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Okay, so we're moving on to items 3 and 4, which is a duo application, both a minor variance and a consent. I will go through the minor variance first, because if that does not get approval, then the consent won't move forward. So the application is A2721. It's an application from Derek and Kimberly Dozois, I think. 466 Brule Road. The subject property has broken frontage on Brule Road and Fourth Line West. It's designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R1 estate residential. Subject to final consent approval of application BA21, relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by permitting an additional lot to be created by reducing the required lot frontage and lot area. Specific sections of the bylaw are 9.5.2. Required lot area of an unserviced lot is 0.8 hectares. The applicant is requesting to reduce the lot area to 0.18 hectares for the proposed separate parcel and to 0.39 hectares for the retained parcel. Required lot area of a service parcel is 0.4 hectares. You will note in the comments that the parcel is intended to be serviced. Required lot frontage 45 meters. Reduce the lot frontage for the proposed separate parcel to 39.37 meters. The reason the lot area is stipulated as it is the committee would be looking at a reduction from 0.8 hectares in lot area to 0.18 hectares if the applicant chose not to service the property. Then the committee is looking at, is that a minor reduction? However, looking at a lot area reduction of 0.4 hectares to 0.39 hectares for a service lot would be a different consideration for the committee. In terms of minor. Again, notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties and by posting a sign on site and on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building and planning staff, engineering services, the legal department, PUC services, public works, Algoma Public Health, and Bell Canada right-of-way had no objections to the application. Building division advised that any future development of the property will require a building permit in compliance with all applicable authorities and legislation. Engineering and construction division provided the following comments. When the existing low-pressure sanitary sewer on Brule Road and Fourth Line was installed, a service T was installed at the Fourth Line side of this property to accommodate the connection to the system. 2, outstanding charges are owed to the developer of the Crimson Ridge subdivision for cost sharing of sanitary infrastructure, which the proposed lot on Fourth Line will benefit from. Certification that the payments have been received for the shared costs of the sanitary infrastructure is required. 3, the low pressure system relies on the use of specific grinder pumps. Changes to the type of pump puts the homeowner at risk of flooding. Each house must be equipped with a positive displacement grinder pump. The approved pumps for this system are DH071 manufactured by Environmental One or HPD 200 manufactured by Hydromatic. A curb stop and check valve is also required at the property line, providing proof of pump installation should be a condition of occupancy. PUC services pointed out that water servicing and frontage charges as applicable would apply to the newly formed lot fronting on Fourth Line. Charges would be due at the time of servicing. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that the area is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority with regard to Ontario Regulation 17606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses. Any development will require a site plan review and may require a permit by the Conservation Authority. Considerations for the committee, there are no objections to the request to date. However, some commenting agency approvals were conditional. Any approval should be made conditional on the following. Certification that outstanding charges owed by the developer of the Crimson Ridge subdivision for cost sharing of sanitary infrastructure on Fourth Line must be provided to the Secretary Treasurer prior to final consent. Proof of installation of a positive displacement grinder pump, which has been approved for installation by the Director of Engineering Services or his designated, must be provided to the Chief Building Official or his designate prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. Water servicing charges and frontage charges are applicable to the lot fronting on Fourth Line and must be paid at the time of servicing. I've provided the following tests that must be met, and I'll ask for your consideration on the minor variance before we proceed to the consent. Mr. Chair, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. I guess there's no one speaking for it, or there's no other, no party speaking towards the two of us, right? No?
No one's signed in.
Any question with respect to committee members, with respect to the two?
I will move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Art, seconded by,
Those
I will,
conditions.
yeah, second, like Art said, with the conditions.
with all the conditions and stipulations, okay?
Yep.
Thank you, Melinda. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent now because we can consider it. And just for the participants' information, if the variances would have failed, we wouldn't have been able to consider the consent. So again, it's application B821, an application from Derek and Kimberly Dozois of 466 Brule Road. Subject to the approval of minor variance application 82721, which we just approved with conditions, the applicants are seeking the committee's consent to sever the southerly portion on Fourth Line West, being approximately 36.58 meters by 50.5 meters and approximately 0.186 hectares in size. The retained land will be approximately 0.39 hectares in size. The intent of the application is to create one additional lot for future residential purposes, and that lot will front on Fourth Line. Notice of public hearing was issued by personal mail and by posting a sign on site and posted on the city's website. Building and planning staff, engineering services, the legal department, PUC services, public works, Algoma Public Health, and Bell Canada right-of-way had no objections. The comments that I just read out to you with regard to the minor variance were the same comments that were submitted as part of the consent. I won't reread them. I'll go into the considerations for the committee. There are no objections to the request to date. However, some commenting agency approvals were conditional. Proposed lot creation satisfies the official plan policies and the zoning bylaw. Customary conditions for lot creation to be attached, such as submission of transfer deed of land, parks levy, certificate application fee, reference plan, PIN abstract, discharge, partial discharge of any encumbrance and payment of municipal taxes would be attached as a condition. In addition to these customary conditions mentioned, any approval should also contain the following conditions. Certification that outstanding charges owed to the developer are provided to the Secretary Treasurer prior to final consent. Proof of installation of a positive displacement grinder pump submitted to the Director of Engineering Services or his designate and must be provided to the Chief Building Official prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. Water servicing charges and frontage charges as applicable to the lot fronting and fourth line must be paid at the time of servicing. While we would add those conditions to the consent, they would still be part of the minor variance conditions. So you'll note that one is prior to an occupancy permit. However, once I endorse the consent, I have no mechanism to go back and make sure that's done, but the variance picks that up and the chief building official and the director of engineering are able to pick it up at permit time. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions from any of the board members with respect to the consent? I don't think so.
I have no question, because I moved the variance, I will certainly move the consent, Mr.
And
Chairman.
thank you, Art. Melinda, will you second? Oh, go ahead.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wayne. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we move on to item 5 on your agenda, which is an application A2821, an application from Magellan Construction Limited, 650 Airport Road. And I'll just catch up to myself here. Okay. They're the owners of 650 Airport Road is located on the east side of Airport Road between Baseline and Second Line West. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and it's owned RA rural area. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by reducing the north interior side yard to legitimize the location of the existing detached garage to facilitate consent application B321. If the committee will recall, a few meetings ago, we approved the creation of this lot. A subsequent survey revealed that the garage slightly contravenes the zoning bylaw. Hence, the consent for the creation of the new lot couldn't be finalized until the committee hears this variance. Specifically, section 9.5.2 requires a minimum interior side yard of 5 meters. The applicant proposes to reduce the north interior side yard to 4 meters for the existing detached garage only. Again, notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and by posting it on the city website. Building and planning staff, engineering services staff, and the legal department and Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority had no comments or objections. Considerations: a recent survey commissioned to satisfy condition of the consent revealed the side yard shortfall. Approval of this request is necessary to final the consent. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Board members, any questions with respect to the application? Concerns?
Pretty straightforward, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Can I have a mover?
I'll move.
Thanks, Belinda. Seconder, please. Thanks, Wayne. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you. We'll move now to item 6 on the agenda, and Noah, that's the application that you're acting as agent for. The application is A2921. It's an application from Rebecca Miller and John Folia. And Noah Russell is acting as agent for the applicants. The subject property is 56 Simon Avenue. The subject property is designated, well, first of all, it's located on the northwesterly side of Simon Avenue, approximately 37 meters north of its intersection with Glen Avenue. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R3 with a special provision 162 low density residential with a special exception. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by increasing the maximum deck projection into the rear yard and easterly side yard, reducing the setback for the existing above ground pool. Specifically, sections 4.2 of zoning bylaw 2005-150, maximum projection into a rear lot line to within 3 meters of a lot line. The applicants are seeking to permit the existing deck to project to within 0.741 meters of the rear lot line. The bylaw says the maximum projection into an interior side yard can be to within 1.2 meters of an interior lot line. The applicants are asking you to permit the existing deck to project to with 1.183 meters of the east interior lot line. Section 9.1.7 requires a minimum setback for the inner wall of the swimming pool to be 1.5 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce that setback for the pool to be 0.96 meters. I'd just like to point out at this time that the applicants purchased this property with all of this in place. They are not the constructors of the pool and deck.
Okay.
Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties and by posting a sign on site. Noah Russell is in attendance on behalf of the applicants. Legal Department and Sault Ste. Marie Conservation Authority had no comments or objections. Building Division staff advised that a building permit is required for the deck, fence, pool, cabana, and basement finishing, and the necessary inspections must be performed. Staff advised that there is a rear yard drainage agreement registered on title of this property. It is the owner's responsibility to keep the drainage swale free and clear, and no construction can negatively impact this swale. If it is determined that the flow of the drainage swale has been compromised, compensated construction alterations may be required. Planning staff had no objections. Attention should be given to neighbors' concerns of privacy, nuisance, and other relevant impacts. Engineering and Construction Division staff advised that there is a rear yard drain swale at or near the north property line. This swale is subject to a drainage agreement under which the owner cannot fill in, disturb, or in any way interfere with the swale. There is also an obligation to maintain and keep the swale from obstruction. The owner should confirm that the deck and pool do not interfere with drainage. And I'd just like to speak to some of those comments for the committee's information. Planning staff say that attention should be given to neighbors' comments. And while we don't have a written comment or a neighbor in attendance, I can advise that a neighbor did call with some concerns, believing that more construction was going to be done. When I clarified to them that it was to legitimize only what exists today, he was satisfied.
Thank you.
Engineering and construction staff and building staff speak to the drainage swale at the rear. I've spoken to the owner, and in all likelihood, the owner has spoken to Mr. Russell about that. And you will see that I've suggested certain conditions. And here are the considerations for the committee. There are no objections to the request to date. Approval should be made conditional on all required building permits being obtained and required inspections being performed. Confirmation that the rear yard drainage swale is not compromised. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Ms. Noah, is it? Sorry, Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Do you have any things you would like to add, sir?
No, she summed it up well.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Russell? Any concerns, any issues? Michelle?
No,
So you put your hand? No?
we need a motion.
Need a motion?
I'll
Thank
move
you.
based on the conditions.
Thank you, Melinda. A
Second.
seconder, please. Thanks, Mr. Greco. All in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on to item 7 has been withdrawn. We'll note that. Item 8 on your agenda is application A3121, an application from Brigitte Lambert. She's the owner of 198 Allagash Drive. The subject property is located on the south side of Allagash Drive and abuts Lake Superior. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R1 estate residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by reducing the east side yard to facilitate the construction of a new residence. Specifically, sections 9.5.2 and 4.11.5 of zoning bylaw 2005-150 requires a minimum other interior side yard of 4.5 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce the east interior side yard for the proposed home to 2.2 meters. Again, notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties and by posting a sign on site. Acknowledge there's no person intending to represent the application. Building and planning staff, engineering services staff, and the legal department staff had no comments or objections. Building staff noted that the proposed development will require a building permit in compliance with all applicable authorities and legislation. Conservation advised that it is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority with regard to Ontario Regulation 17606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses. Any development will require a permit by the Conservation Authority. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. There's no objections to the request. There's no additional comments or conditions that I will be requesting added to the application. The committee may wish that an advisement be put on regarding permits, but even that's not specifically necessary. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions? Committee members?
I will move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Arthur. Seconder, please. Thanks, Wayne. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
So we're moving on to item 9 and 10. Again, we have a tandem applications. Item 9 is A3421. Item 10 is B1821. Both are subject property is 576 Brule Road. And Tom, you're representing the applicants, correct? Tom, he's unmuted then. Tom, you're acting as agent for the applicants, correct?
Sorry, Michelle, it was on mute. Yes, I'm representing the applicants.
Okay, thank you. So this is a twofold application. Again, we'll deal with the minor variance and then move on to the consent. Daniel Fremlin Holdings is the registered owner of 576 Brule Road. It is located on
Michelle,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I thought you were dealing with 1643 third line. I don't represent Daniel.
Yeah, okay. So there's no representation present. We'll still move on with the application. Daniel Fremlin Holdings Inc. is the registered owner of 576 Brule Road. It is located on the east side of Brule Road, approximately 403 meters north of its intersection with 4th Line West. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R1 estate residential. Subject to final consent approval of application B1821. I'm just checking because I'm sorry, I knew the solicitor that presented this application was going to attend, but he must have got tied up. Specifically, section 9.5.2 required lot frontage requirement is 45 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce the lot frontage for the proposed 4 severed parcels and for the retained parcel to 44 meters. Again, it was mailing by personal mail, posting on site and posting on the web. Planning staff, engineering services, the legal department, and public works had no objections. I will now introduce the consent application as well. because the comments that were submitted, which are lengthy, reference the consent. And rather than do it twice, I'll introduce what the consent proposes. Subject to the minor variance application A3421, the applicant is seeking the committee's consent to 4 parcels fronting on Brule Road, each being 44 meters by 96 meters by 0.42 hectares in size. The retained land will have a frontage of 44 meters and approximate area of 12 hectares. The intent of the application is to create 4 additional severed lots for future residential development purposes. At this point, some of the committee members will recognize that this property has been the subject of several consent applications before that were approved in the past but weren't followed through. Those consents were similar to this. However, the properties proposed at that time were significantly deeper. So, notice of public hearing was issued by personal mail and posting a sign on site. The following comments were received. John Nacarado of 583 Brule Road does not object to the consent application as filed, provided there is confirmation from the city to guarantee sufficient water pressures and no impact on the grinder pump system. A number of houses further up on the street already experience low water pressures. Also, the houses further up on the street experience grinder pump failures due to the system design and pressures. Technical review produced the following comments. Building and planning staff, engineering services staff, the legal department and public works had no objections. Building advised that any future development of the property will require a building permit in compliance with all applicable authorities and legislation. Engineering and Construction Division has reviewed the above noted application and provides the following. The applicant must enter into a development agreement with the city. 2, approval shall be conditional upon a servicing study to the satisfaction of the Director of Engineering or his designate. The servicing study must determine the downstream impacts on the low pressure sanitary system and whether the system can handle the increased flows from the additional lots. And I believe that would satisfy Mr. Nacarado's comment. The existing low pressure sanitary sewer on Brule Road and 4th Line was designed to accommodate the connection of 120 existing lots on 4th Line and Brule Road. Should they decide to connect to the system, certification is required that this development will not impact the future connect of these lots. Outstanding charges are owed to the city and the developer of Cruise and Ridge subdivision for cost sharing of sanitary infrastructure, which the proposed lots on Brule Road will benefit from. Certification that the payments have been received for the shared costs of the sanitary infrastructure is required. The applicant will be required to install the sanitary and water services for each lot and then repave the portion of the road that was excavated during the installation of services. Patches for each service connection will not be acceptable. A clause must be registered on title of each lot stating that each house must be equipped with a positive displacement grinder pump. The approved pumps for this system are the DH071, manufactured by Environment One, or the HPD 200, manufactured by Hydromatic. A curb stop and check valve is also required at the property line. A lot grading and drainage plan must be completed by a lot grading professional to ensure that drainage is dealt with appropriately. Lot grading professionals must be a professional engineer, civil, architect, or an Ontario land surveyor experienced in lot grading design, and no work shall be commenced without the approval of the Director of Engineering or his designate. Any work which requires approvals from the city and the Ministry of Environment shall not commence until such approvals and agreements are endorsed. PUC Service advised that although they have no objections to the severance proceeding, they wish to point out that A, water servicing to the proposed lots is currently not in place and would be provided upon request at PUC bylaw rates in place at the time of connection. B, water frontage charges would be due in accordance with PUC bylaw rates at the time of severance. And C, fire protection is currently not provided from the municipal drinking water system in the area. Depending upon the type of development proposed for these properties and municipal requirements, a study may be required to establish adequate means for fire protection. Public Works noted that the servicing of the lot shall be installed by a city-approved contractor under the supervision of a consulting engineer. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that the area is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority with regard to Ontario Regulation 17606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses. Any development will require a site plan review and may require a permit by the Conservation Authority. The proposed lots severed lots 2, 3, and 4 of this application will not require a Conservation Authority permit as they are not within the regulated area. I'd just like to point out that I have spoken and provided a copy of these comments and anticipated conditions to the solicitor acting for the applicant, and he, the only concern he had was the amount that would be owed to the developer for the Crimson Ridge subdivision, and I encouraged him to contact both our engineering department and the developer for those costs. Considerations: there are no objections to the request to date. However, some commenting agency approvals were conditional. Proposed lot creation satisfies official plan policies and the zoning bylaw. Customary conditions for lot creation to be attached as submission of transfer deed of land, parks, levies, certificate application fee, reference plan, PIN abstract. Algoma Public Health support won't be necessary if connected to city services. Discharge and partial discharge of any encumbrance, payment of municipal taxes. In addition to customary conditions mentioned, any approval should also contain the following conditions. The applicant must enter into a lot development agreement with the city. Since there's only the committee members in attendance, and Tom, I know you can hear me, as a member of the public, I've already read all of those comments into the record and the conditions that would be contained therein, and they would be my recommendation as conditions for the committee's consideration. Does the committee or Tom want me to reread those things? Are you satisfied that they're in your package as stated?
Michelle, which, because I'm not representing or dealing.
Oh,
for
you're not
Danny.
representing them, but you're a member of the public in attendance. Are you interested in hearing them all again?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. And the rest of the committee?
I'm
No,
fine with not hearing
Okay.
them.
Then, Mr. Chair, my submissions are as I've indicated in your package.
thank you, Michelle. So just a single motion for both, Michelle?
No, one motion for each. We'll do the variance first.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to make one statement. Michelle has mentioned that, and it seems to be a concern with the water pressure. And as Michelle has stated, and I'll mention it again, so maybe she can comment, but the approval shall be conditional upon a servicing study to the satisfaction of the engineering or his designate. It seems that that problem will have to be okayed by the engineer or his designate. Is that correct? And that will cover that problem, because that seems to be a problem in that area.
That's correct.
Because,
It's a condition of, it would be a condition of any approval.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
welcome. A mover, please.
I will move the first part.
Arthur,
I also will move the consent if it's
thank you. That's what I was,
okay with the chair.
I will
Thank you.
second, but with all the conditions outlined.
correct. Thank you.
Melinda, are you doing the consent as well?
Sure.
Thank you. And just so the committee knows, we don't need to make all the conditions part of the minor variance because it is a minor variance. But the minor variance must be, the consent must be finalized for that minor variance to be in place. So if the applicant does not proceed and does not finalize the consent and comes down the road, or someone else comes down the road and wants to reapply, they would have to apply for the variance as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I need an all in favor.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11 or tab 11 on your agenda. Application A35, an application from the city. The subject property is 616 Gooley Avenue, which is the existing McMeekin Center. It is located on the east side of Gooley Avenue between Second Line West and Third Line West. The subject property is designated institutional in the official plan and is zoned PR Parks and Recreation. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by reducing a portion of the north side yard for an approximate length of 21.12 meters and a portion of the rear yard for an approximate length of 34.73 meters to facilitate the construction of the Northern Community Center's twin pad expansion. Specifically, section 12.2 of zoning bylaw 2005-150 requires a minimum distance from any lot line to be 30 meters. The applicant is asking that you reduce the minimum distance from the north lot line to 28 meters, and reduce the minimum distance from the rear lot line to 16.4 meters, only for those sections that are not in compliance. And again, it's noted for the approximate length, but it's in compliance with the sketch. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties and by posting a sign on site. Building, planning, engineering services, legal department, and conservation authority staff did not object to the application. Conservation authority staff advised that the area is under the jurisdiction of the conservation authority with regard to Ontario Regulation 17606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses. Any development will require a site plan review and may require a permit from the Conservation Authority. In summary, there are no objections to the request to date. The only consideration I would ask that the committee give is perhaps a condition that says that the approval is based on the site plan that was submitted with the application. And those are my suggestions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions from committee members?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Way back, I was instrumental in being part of the construction of the old now building that they're going to replace. And I'm so happy that council did give their approval for the new sports center, because it certainly needed in that area of the city. And I would be very happy to move this application.
Thank you. Art, seconder. Thanks, Wayne. With all the conditions as described by Michelle, her comment. Okay, how do we vote? Carried.
Thank you. And we've got Tom. And Tom, last but not least, of course, always a pleasure.
It gives me a break this way, Michelle. Thank you.
Application B1721, an application from Eva May Bovington, 1643 Third Line West. Tom Feifel is agent for on the application. The subject property is located on the south side of Third Line West between Lees Bay Road and Carter Beach Road. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned RA rural area. The applicant is seeking the committee's consent to sever two westerly lots fronting on Third Line West. One proposed lot to be 76.2 meters by 254 meters by 1.9 hectares. And the adjacent most westerly lot to be irregular in shape with a frontage of 76.2 meters and an approximate area of 3.05 hectares. The retained land will be approximately 9.5 hectares in size. The intent of the application is to create two additional lots for future residential development purposes. Notice of public hearing was issued by personal mail by posting a sign on site and posting on the city's website. Building and planning staff, legal department staff, public works staff, and Bell Canada right of way had no objections. Building division staff advised that any future development of the property will require a building permit and compliance with all applicable authorities and legislation. Engineering and construction division has reviewed the above noted application and provides the following. There is no sanitary servicing in the area. Any septic system design shall be to the satisfaction of Algoma Public Health. A culvert permit will be required for a new entrance. Sault Ste. Marie Conservation Authority advised that the area is under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority with regard to Ontario Regulation 17606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses. Any further development will require a site plan review and may require a permit by the Conservation Authority. The proposed severed lots on this application will not require a Conservation Authority permit as they are not within the regulated area. Considerations, there are no objections to the request to date. The proposed lot creation satisfies official plan policies in the zoning bylaw. Customary conditions for lot creation to be attached to any approval are transfer deed of land, park study, certificate application fee, reference plan, PIN abstract, Algoma Public Health support, discharge, partial discharge of any encumbrance and payment of municipal taxes. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Feifel, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, Michelle summarized it better than I could. So no, I'm very satisfied with everything that was presented.
Well, thank you, sir. You certainly had the patience to wait through it all, and a couple of times your comments were requested, so.
I had lots to do on the side. No problem. Thank you.
Committee members, any questions, concerns? If not, may I have a mover then, please?
I will move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Arthur. Wayne, second. Wayne seconding. I see you're seconding with all the conditions. Can I have a vote? Carried. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, committee members.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
You too, sir.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Chair, if I could have a motion to adjourn. First noting though that our next meeting is August 25th.
Okay,
And I think
August 25th.
Mr. Greco, are you related to?
Let's adjourn first.
All right, okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
can I have a motion? Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?